And there's some definitely chalky teams, similar like Baltimore, New Orleans, and Dallas all look like really fantastic teams to kind of be stackable with. Green Bay has a little bit of upside. Philly has some upside. Tennessee has a little bit of upside for different players and things like that too. So let's go and get in the slate. Let's go with our quarterbacks. Starting out here, Lamar Jackson is going to be top overall play. He's been pretty good so far this season. He's had some good games. He had one bad game week 2, but he's got a good matchup here against Washington. Now, Washington has played better the last couple games, but I do think he's going to have a lot of potential to have a big game here. He's pricey, though, and you don't have to pay up for him, as there's plenty of value plays on this one. Of course, Jalen Hurts is also available, who's a little bit cheaper. He hasn't really started the season as well as Jackson has, though, so keep that in mind. And he does have a tougher defensive matchup against Cleveland, but he does get that rushing potential, so he's definitely capable of a big game. Spencer Rattler is a cheap option today for New Orleans. He looks like he's going to draw the start today. He's $4,000. I got to get down here to him. There he is. He should be starting for New Orleans against Tampa Bay, which is a favorable situation for him. He was the third string going in this game, but he is moved up to starter for this game while Derek Carr's out. And he's going to give some opportunity here to have a big game, especially against a weak defense like Tampa Bay when it comes to that. So he looks like a really solid option today at dirt cheap price. Will Levis is also in play today as he is back from injury against Indiana, who has struggled against the pass this season. And I think he's going to have some potential today, have a solid game, even though he has struggled in the games he's played so far. He is definitely capable in this matchup to have a favorable potential. The ownership here will be Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Justin Fields. But I do think Rattler and Levis have that potential today. Be contrarian plays that are dirt cheap. Again, the running backs, Alvin Kamara is a top play here. He's been phenomenal in most of the games this season for the Saints. He is extremely expensive, so he's not a must play because of that. But he is in a favorable matchup against Tampa Bay, and I think New Orleans is going to have a lot of potential today. Bijan Robinson is probably my favorite play at this position for Arizona, or sorry, for Atlanta. Why did I say Arizona? He's been steady so far this season. He hadn't had a big monster game, but he is capable of that. His price point is pretty fair, and he's got one of the best matchups he can have for this matchup. He should hopefully get a touchdown today, and he'll be a good option on the slate. Tony Pollard is similar priced to Robinson, a little bit cheaper for Tennessee. He's been pretty good in most of the games so far, and he has some potential today for a touchdown, especially against a weak defense. And so he's definitely somebody you can consider as well. Chuba Hubbard, also in play for Carolina, though he is a little bit riskier, though he's had a higher ceiling the last few games, and he's got a very favorable matchup in this one. Bucky Irving is going to be a kind of a value play on the slate for a little bit cheaper here. Now he does have some upside. He has been inconsistent so far this season, but he does have draw some potential and a pretty decent matchup here. But his New Orleans has been better against the run than against the pass, but he can get some passes through the air. The ownership here will be Bucky Irving, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Alvin Kamara, and Chuba Hubbard. I don't think you have to pay down for Irving on this one, but you can definitely try to do that. That will be a chalkier potential play. Looking at our wide receivers, we do like Drake London a lot today for Atlanta. He has some very good potential on the slate. He's been having some good games the last 4 weeks, and he had a really big game against Tampa Bay. I look for him to try to have another big game here against a very weak Carolina defense. He's also priced pretty fairly here. CD Lamb has also been somebody that I consider today, even though it is a tougher matchup. He's been solid throughout the season so far. If he can score a touchdown, that would definitely boost his potential here as well, but he is fairly expensive. I do think Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably a little bit steadier than CD Lamb today, but I do expect Dallas to have a solid game. Dallas can sometimes be inconsistent, whereas St. Brown has had 3 straight games over 20 fantasy points, and he's purely a prime target, so he's got the touchdown potential today, despite it being a tougher matchup. Zay Flowers is a nice cheap play for Baltimore. He's got some fantastic upside on the slate and a good matchup. He's been inconsistent, but he is capable. And some games he gets a lot of targets. I think today will be one of those days. as the passing defense is a little bit tougher, and he typically gets more interest in that type of scenario. And then Deontay Johnson, he is questionable, but he is expected to play for Carolina. He does have a tougher defensive situation here, but he is a capable option. He also has that big play potential, and if he hits a touchdown, then he will definitely pay off at this price point. Ray McLeod uh, is also a good play for Atlanta as he has some potential today. He's had a couple of good games so far in the last two, and he has some potential here as a cheap value play against a weak team. The ownership will be Jake London, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, Loud McConkey, Deontay Johnson, Jaden Reed, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Looking at our tight ends, we do like Jake Ferguson a lot today. He is a core play for me. He's $5,000. He's got some good upside here. He's been over 10 fantasy points in the last three games he's played, and he has some good potential on the slate in a positive matchup here against a weak defense like Detroit's from the passing. But he's also good. He's also good in pretty much any situation. So Cade Otton is a good value option here if you don't want to pay as much or you want to save some money. For Tampa Bay, he's got some potential. He's had a couple decent games the last few weeks, and he does have some potential for a touchdown on the slate. Tucker Kraft is also somebody that we like for Las Vegas against Pittsburgh. Even though Pittsburgh has a tougher defense most of the time, he's had some good games, and he's definitely capable of a. What the heck did I put? I'm sorry. Tucker Kraft, not Trey Tucker. He's against Arizona, and he's got a favorable matchup here. He's had two really good games in a row. If he can score a touchdown, which is definitely capable, then he'll be in play here. The ownership here will be Jake Ferguson, Kaya Otten, Brock Bowers, and Tucker Kraft. I think Bowers is going to be looked at. He's going to be looked at a lot because of his name, and that's probably for a good reason, but he definitely doesn't look the best on the slate. Looking at our defenses, we do like the Eagles the best. They have a lot of potential here against Cleveland, though Cleveland has struggled, and so has Philly's defense. I think they'll be a good play on the slate. I also like the Texans for Houston against New England. New England has struggled to move the ball. Titans look decent against Indiana, though I do think Indianapolis has some better chance to move the ball than some of the other teams. Bucks defense also looks interesting against New Orleans. It's kind of a contrarian, cheap play, but I do think New Orleans has some potential today. As for the ownership, the Bucks, the Eagles, and the Ravens will be the top owners. So if you steer clear for the Bucks, that may actually be a really sneaky way to go today. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. I did want to mention that the NBA stuff will be coming soon as the season starts.